Hello and welcome everyone, a new episode of Money Means Business. Just a few days ago, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi inaugurated a number of national projects in the investment zone. The president, of course, was accompanied by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, a number of ministers and top executives. And in a very short speech, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi sent a number of messages to all of us, and particularly to new investors, to businessmen who want to invest here in Egypt, to tell them that they are very much welcomed, but practically and on the ground. He spoke a lot in numbers and in statistics. As usual, he's all the time thinking about what's going to happen, and we have no ceiling for our ambitions. Well, before going into more details and before analyzing the messages sent through the President's speech to all of us, as I said, let's have first a quick look at what happened and to have this comprehensive report about this inauguration process, which took place, as I said, only a few days ago, whether in person or via video conference.
During the inauguration of a number of national projects, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said that the size of the private sector in Egypt reached 75%, commenting the opposite of many people imagine a number other than that. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi stressed the importance of solving all obstacles facing investors and businessmen, saying they put their hands in the hands of each other and strive, and they solve all the obstacles that meet investors and businessmen, noting that the agenda and activities of the economic conference will be launched next month. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said that the Egyptian state cares about industry, stressing the great interest in and support for industry in Egypt, as well as facilitating all obstacles and difficulties that may be encountered. On the other hand, ABB, which operates in Egypt in the field of energy and electrical industries, announced that the volume of its exports is no less than 25% of its production through its factory in the Free Zone and the 10th of Ramadan factory, with Egyptian products with a local component ratio between 40 and 70%, and recently obtained Proudly Made in Egypt certificate. This came on the sidelines of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's visit to a number of Egyptian factories with its strategic products in the Free Zone, through which he confirmed the state's plan to achieve $100 billion in exports and work to support industries and facilitate any obstacles and challenges for manufacturers, with the need to facilitate clearing procedures for investors. On the other hand, Engineer Ahmed Samir, Minister of Trade and Industry, announced that a Taiwanese company is in the process of establishing a project to produce an air conditioning compressor in Egypt in cooperation with an Egyptian company, with a total investment of $33 million and a production capacity of 6 million compressors annually. Actual production is scheduled to start during 2024. The minister explained that the new project will be built in the industrial area of Qom Abu Radi in Bani Suef Governorate, noting that the initial production volume of the project is 2 million units, reaching 6 million units within 5 years, adding that the project aims to meet the needs of the local market. In an attempt to attract foreign investments and work to increase exports to $100 billion, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli held a meeting to follow up the procedures for restructuring a number of companies affiliated with the National Service Authority in preparation for offering shares of them on the stock exchange. During the meeting, the steps that are being taken to restructure the National Company for the Sale and Distribution of Petroleum Products, Wataniya, and the National Company for Production Projects, Safi, affiliated with the National Service Authority, were reviewed in preparation for offering their shares on the stock exchange. On the sidelines of inaugurating a number of projects for the General Investment Authority, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi affirmed that the government is serious about solving the problems facing investors, especially with regard to importing production requirements, noting that he directed the government to solve these problems and obstacles within a month or two at most. In implementation of President El-Sisi's directions, the government is working to pay attention to and support the industry and to overcome all the obstacles it faces, noting that the economic conference that Egypt intends to implement next month will be an opportunity to present the problems facing investors in Egypt and discuss the necessary solutions to them. The government is also working to provide support and assistance to the private sector, which represents at least 70 to 75% of the Egyptian economy.
Welcome back. And to start immediately, as we do have a lot to speak about as usual when it comes to our economy and our investment environment, to be accurate, investment atmosphere, and the challenges in front of us, we are very much delighted to have with us our economic expert, Dr. Said Kholy, former Dean of Faculty of Commerce, Ain Shams University. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
You're very welcome.
Sir, when I was listening to President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi when he addressed the gathering in the inauguration of a number of new national projects affiliated to the investment zone, whether in person or via video conference in different governorates in Al-Qalyubiyya or in the Qahliya, in Al-Bahira, there was, as I said in my intro, a lot of messages sent by the President. First, speaking about eliminating all obstacles in front of the investors. And he said that we have tried before the one-stop shop, the licenses given in just 20 days or maybe less than that, but we promise for more. And we are very much welcoming the giant share, if we may say, of the private sector in our GDP or in our economy. And he said from 70 to 75%. I think this was the very first time to listen to the head of a state speaking in numbers about the share of the private sector. Tell me first your vision regarding that.
That is a leadership. President Sisi, he believes sky is not the limit. He always ambitious. He always, since the development of Egypt Vision 2030, he set a higher level of standard. For example, in 2017, he mentioned this year, which is 2017, it is a year of quality. And he set the standard for quality for our industrial sector, for our agriculture sector, for our educational sector, for healthcare sector. He demand more and more, and he always achieve his goals, and that is basically the leadership. The leadership which is simply, which today is the 1st of October, which we celebrate the victory of 6th of October, which I really salute our armed forces for that day. And setting this kind of message, which he said 100 billion Egyptian pound for importing our product. Dollars
Yeah.
For our product in order to be able to export it to the whole world. And this visit for the free zone in Medinat Nasr, in Nasr city, he really, I was very happy. I was very, very proud of being an Egyptian to see this industrial facility and these people who are were abroad, Egyptian people who are spent certain period of time in Germany, in Italy, in France, and many other countries, and they came to Egypt to invest their money with the new technology and so on. Let me tell you, the free zone industrial area, most of the products they produce is for exporting, for other, as a feeding industry, for automotive industry, for another industry, and so on. And they build for themselves a brand, which I was so proud for for all of them to see our product with a high level of quality, and it satisfy exporting plus the local market. And we are going, President Sisi he really, his vision is to be able to satisfy the need for our Egyptian people, and will be able
The
to
local market, and to open new horizons regarding the international
for
markets.
international market. He always believe there is no obstacle can and stop his direction. And when he looked for the central bank and he told him, in 2 weeks we have to really break all the barrier for investors to be able to bring our raw materials to make
This
things
is
going.
another story. He had this meeting with Dr. Hassan Abdullah, the CBE governor, and he said it clearly. We need to end all obstacles facing import and local manufacturing operations resulting from the Russian-Ukrainian crisis within 2 months, not 2 weeks, from 1 month to 2 months. But sir, I mean, this is something which is not our fault. I mean, we are facing a challenge which is already facing the whole world. I mean, nobody would blame us for the less activities if we do have some, or if there are obstacles hindering the way. How do you see telling us? I mean, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is keen to say it more than once. We are not going to hide anything. We are going to share the people the reality as is. If there are problems or crises, we are going to mention them and how we are going to solve them. And if everything's going okay, we are going to say that too. How do you see this kind of a relation between the political leadership and the people?
He's one of us. I believe President Sisi, he's one of us. He cares for us. He always see Egypt and we want Egypt to be in a different place in the world stage. And remember, I believe President Sisi, he worked like 48 hours during the day, you know. Yes. He, in the early in the morning, he goes for roads, for example, to see the progress of our infrastructure and so on. He always demanding more and more from his government, and he always keen for Egyptian people in all different sectors, not only industrial or agriculture, but in healthcare, in social activity and so on. Remember, President Sisi looked for the lockdown for COVID-19, for example, for about more than 2 years now, and for the crisis between Russia and the Ukrainian. He didn't look at it as a challenge. He didn't look at it as a threat. He looked at it as an opportunity. And remember, 4 years ago, we started to build infrastructure for all different type of infrastructure, with power supply, with all of that really attract more and more foreign direct investment in Egypt. I believe, remember, it is not in industrial sector and agricultural sector. The outcome, it doesn't come in a month or a year.
Yes.
It takes a period of time. And my belief, 2023 will start to see the fruits of President Sisi strategy. I'm sure of that, and we are going to have a growth rate will be doubled in 2023. And the quality of life of Egyptian people, it will improve. And he takes the challenge, he transfer it from threat to opportunity. Remember, there is a lot of factories, multinational company in Russia, they closed down, and in Europe and so on. He will bring all these people to Egypt because we have the infrastructure, we have the power supply, we have the security of our borders. Don't forget that. And all of that, it is really a plus for attracting more foreign direct investment and local investor in Egypt. And believe it or not, for whether it's a private investor, Egyptian investors or foreign investor, Egypt now is a safe haven for investment. Why? Because we have all different factors for operation, whether it's in industrial or in agriculture.
And we are fighting bureaucracy and corruption.
Absolutely.
I mean, those two elements were, in my humble opinion at least, one, nightmares. They were nightmares in front of any startup, of any investor, of anyone who wanna have a share in our economic process. How do you see this, as I said, as two of the main elements? Because also, in many occasions, whether President Abdel Fattah Sisi, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, ministries of industry or finance, they were all the time speaking about how to fight bureaucracy and how to manage this whole issue for the best interest of us, of course, of all of us, and also to fight corruption. Nobody is above law.
Absolutely.
Now the case is totally clear. Nobody is above law. How do you see this, sir?
President Sisi believe in governance, and governance is built on transparency, and he's very transparent with his government and with the public at the same time and the investor at the same time. Remember, during his this opening of industry in free zone, he mentioned one thing very important. He said, let's sit with the people, let's wait with the investors and develop an economical summit where the government and the private sector meet together in order to explain what is the problems they have, how to solve it, and so on. He doesn't hesitate in order to find a solution for any problem. Remember, whenever President Sisi take action towards some sector, we see a different result for the same people. And when we apply governance, it really, with digital transformation, for example, reduce corruption, reduce bribe, and so on, which is really you fixing a system.
And evade human errors, or to minimize human errors, at least.
Absolutely.
And he said also, and he was directing his speech to Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, he told him that they are going to visit many of the factories or the companies in the near future. And this is also sending a message for any factory or any company which are facing some hard circumstances because of what we are all facing. I mean, we here means the whole world are facing, meaning that they do have a backup, meaning that they can find a support. Whatever the case is, there is a solution. This is also another message. If you please elaborate.
I can really elaborate in one word. That is the leadership. When you have a leader who keen for his country, where he keen for his people, the investors, they will feel safe. They can lean on that leader in order to provide them for whenever they need. I remember when he looked for the central bank governor, he said, we have to really overcome all this problem. We have to facilitate the financial issue in banking and so on, in order to get the needed raw materials. Without raw materials, you cannot have a product or service. And in no time, it will be solved. And remember, when the leader, when President Sisi give order, we see a different result. And that's a big burden for President Sisi, for example, to overlook for everything.
But because of that, sir, if you permit me to add to what you're saying, there is a platform for this. I mean, another occasion, another, let us say, economic summit. Also, the president was keen to mention the economic conference, which is going to take place just a few weeks from now. And the preparations are underway to make it a story of success and to discuss a number of issues which are really vital and important regarding our economic process. What's your vision regarding this coming economic summit or economic conference, which is going to gather investors from all over the world and is going to address all the obstacles on the way and finding solutions to eliminate all of them?
Listening is the key success for management. Instead of doing things in your own way, no, we have to listen for the people who are responsible for private investors. We see what they need, we see what's their problems, we see what is their vision in order to, an example was meeting with one of the businessmen in that meeting a few days ago. He said, we want to have, expand our facility to, instead of having one facility, we have the money and we have the investor, foreign investor, to expand it to 10 other facilities and so on. And I believe that is a success story. and we have really to celebrate. We have for Egyptian TV, they should really invite these business people in order to show the Egyptian people, the public, how the success story, how these people really went from zero to what they have right now, to be able to export their product and service for all over the world. Remember, all of this export, it goes to Europe, which is a good news for Egyptian industry, for Egyptian agriculture. Remember, and President Sisi also, or his leadership, is a proactive, not reactive. Remember, a couple of years ago, he predicted, and the government predicted the shortage of food supply worldwide, and we started to have 1.5 million acres to be planted with wheat and so on. So we really didn't really suffer from this problem where the rest of the world suffer. He predicted also the surplus for power supply, which most of European nations in the fall, in the winter, they would really face
I don't know how they are going to spend winter.
And
I mean, it's going to. I hope that it's not going to be a catastrophic one, but with what we are witnessing, that the war, it's continuing. I don't know how they are going to manage.
It's going to be tough time.
Very tough, sir. Since you are an academic, of course, and when it comes to education and how education should serve the society in general, the president spoke about the academic research and how the businessmen and investors should have this very strong bond or link with the researchers, because the researchers may find the solutions for many problems. And we should not just have research and putting them in the drawers. The research should be, when there are solutions there, they should be practically implemented on the ground to fill this gap between theory and practice, between wonderful research, but they are not implemented on the ground or being there in the market to fulfill our needs or to solve our problems. This is another invitation. How do you see this as an academic?
I remember about 10 years ago, I developed a model which I call it Research Triangle Park. It's a triangle where you have three people involved.
Okay.
The research method and our student, our PhD student or DBA student or master student.
Postgraduate student.
And the graduate student and the business community.
Okay.
And we have a very successful story in the Faculty of Business at Ain Shams University with group of my students solved a huge problem in Port Said, for example.
Great.
In industrial sectors, they develop a new product and so on. During the period of Corona, I told my students we have to really take advantage from this global event and how to really solve this problem. And remember, in education system or in research, you have to look for how to solve a problem.
Sure.
Not how to really go for library and do basic research and this research stay on shelf. No, we have to really focus in how to implement research, how to be able to solve a problem, how to think out of the box, and how to be creative in order to benefit our industrial sector. We have a lot of models from my students, which I encourage them, and all I'm saying, whatever I'm saying to you, it's already published in a huge conference in the States where I take my student and join the conference in Washington, D.C., in New York, and so on. They travel. And when this kind of things happen...
Focusing on what, sir? I mean, startups, new entrepreneurs, marketing, what?
In all different sectors, for example, we have a problem, and my group of students, they will be able to attack and solve whatever problem using the Research Triangle Park. You provide them with the methodology, with the techniques, and we sit as a group, brainstorm, and be able to solve.
It's like a
mega
think tank?
A think tank, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really a think tank But it's a huge tank because
Yeah.
our population is growing and growing. And basically, after they graduate, after they finish their degree, they continue and enjoy working with these groups. I am really believing in collectivism, not in individualism. The university professor should be a mentor for his or her student in order to really create more and more success story in our educational system. And
It's at the core of his job.
absolutely.
Yes.
And the educational system, it is really the lower bottom of the triangle. It is really known by heart. No one who we should avoid that. We have to go for creativity. We have to
Think
go
out
for
of the
innovation.
box.
Absolutely. We have to really work as a group, not as an individual, in order to bring more and more ideas. For example, in Port Said, for example, where I have the governor for Port Said, Dr. Adel Ghabban, he really came and participate in a PhD degree discussion. And he wasn't believed. He said to me, we tried all different means in order, and this group of students, they solved the problem, and Port Said, it was no problem after that. Involve our youth in solving the problem. Involve our youth in solving our problem. Involve our youth in solving the problem. Integrate educational system with industrial sector, with agriculture sector, and so on. During the Russian-Ukrainian war, where we have one main product which all Egyptian people use is the bread. And how to solve this problem, how to really reduce the dependence on importing wheat from outside.
Grains, yes.
And our students, they came with a solution, and they put it in action. And one of our representative in Parliament, he took really care of that project in order to generalize for all Egyptians. That is a success story, and I believe in our educational system, if we work with this kind of thinking, we are going to be able to really solve a lot of problems for industrial sector, for agricultural sector, and I'm talking about managerial. Management is the yardstick for solving any problem.
Sure.
And really, when you see any problem in a private sector or public sector, they said it's the lack of management.
Yes, sure.
And from managerial perspective, we should be able to solve any problem with the help of our government, with the help of our system, and so on.
But what you have said, sir, and what you have mentioned, it's such a role model. It's a role model and example of CSR, corporate social responsibility.
Absolutely.
The university, it's not only about teaching the students, it's about serving the community, serving the society. And to add to this, the president also mentioned a very, very successful experience which was held by one of the businessmen or a huge corporation who built a school. And with this school, the students there who learned a lot about, or they were very well educated with this kind of specialty. And when they were graduated, they already started working there in this corporate, and they achieved a lot of success. So this was another huge, big example of CSR.
Absolutely.
How do you see this? Because the qualified workers, the well-trained cadres are also part and parcel of any successful story in any domain, whether industrial, agricultural, social, cultural, you name it. This is also another invitation or another message. If you do so, you are going to be very much helped and supported by the political leadership, and this is going to be a win-win situation. You are going to win, and we are going to win. Other batches of graduates, very well qualified, meeting the needs of the market, and also we can have this kind of exchanging expertise between us and other countries who are better in other industrial fields. For example, how do you see this?
that is, we have to change the structure of our educational system. Now, the whole world, in Germany, in France, in Italy, in the States, in Canada, they have this kind of model where we have what we call it as a community college. A community college, it's a 2 years community college. It's supported by the government and with the help of investors and private sector where they invest in this community college. It is absolutely a very low fees or very low tuition for a student. For example, you can take the course for only $25. If you take 4 courses, it's $100 per semester. And that is fully sponsored by the government, where every community can have their community college to help people, young people, after they graduate from high school or whatever, any industrial school, and they join the community college for 2 years, and they give them associate degree, so they can really, they have a protocol or they have a partnership with a university if the student want to continue after that. But with this associate certificate, he can really join the workforce and make money.
Yep.
And in Faculty of Business, which we have this model, which I was involved in that 6 years ago, and we have agreement with one of the big university in New Jersey, which is called Kane University, and another community college which is called Ocean Community College. And we have really give the student, this program, it is a unique in Egypt. It's its only program where our student, when they graduate, they have a bachelor degree from Ain Shams with a separate certificate, and a bachelor degree from Kane University, which is a separate certificate, and another certificate from Ocean, which is associate degree. And with his certificate from the state, he can really apply for a master degree or whatever, and he can work. They offer a job opportunity for our student. And when we attended the graduation for a couple of years ago, you will see the student is different student. How they speak, how they present themselves, and really depend on hand education. On hand education, it's how to do this, how to practice this, not knowing by heart. And really, I believe when I saw this, I was so proud. It is a very good success story, and we really should generalize it in our educational system. And of course, with the participation, as you mentioned, with the what do you call it as integration between private sector and government, where they provide this community college as a social responsibility,
Of course,
and they can
CSR.
deduct it from their taxes and so on. With this model, we'll be able to build, and remember, President Sisi, a couple of years ago, he said, we are going with the fourth industrial revolution. In order to go with the fourth industrial revolution, our educational system, it doesn't match and it doesn't discuss the fourth revolution. So we have to integrate artificial intelligence in our integrant and our curriculum. We have to integrate digitalization in our curriculum. We have to 3D printing in our educational curriculum, and all of that in order to be able to have a workforce which is highly trained, highly educated. Vocational training, vocational education is a very important, and that's the future for our Egyptian. We graduate a lot of students from commerce, from law school, from liberal art and so on, and they don't find job. And with this kind of model, we'll be able to reach employability rate to be 100%. With Don Boscom, for example, Cairo, he is an Italian guy, which he developed that 50 years ago, and the employability rate for his school is 100%. We really have to change the culture of...
This was my coming question regarding what you have said, sir. Have we changed the culture?
We have to.
Or we have to, or we already started the process? We started the process? Have we started the process?
We started the process, but when we talk about culture, change the culture is a very tough task, you know. It doesn't change overnight.
But our people is very intelligent, or I do have this trust, because I can find even in the circle around me, people who are thinking about the future of their sons or daughters. You would not find, or I would not find so many people sticking to, for example, Faculty of Medicine. What about nursing? If we do need more nurses, then it's very much intelligent to go for this rather than doctors. This is only an example. Technicians. I would prefer to let my son go to a vocational secondary school rather than the general one. These differences, have you witnessed yourself that they are changing, or we are in the process, or still we do stick to our old traditional way of thinking?
That's our role. We make awareness for this kind of programs, the people will change their mindset and the level of thinking.
Stereotype.
It is a stereotype, I agree with you, and changing over time. The more programs which enhance the value of vocational system, and remember, as you mentioned, nurses and so on, the salary of intensive care nurse, which is a registered nurse, is higher than the university professor.
Yep.
I have a friend of mine. He used to be a friend of. He is a university professor, and his wife, it was a registered nurse in intensive care unit. Her salary was double his salary. But we don't have, that is culture. And if we really, in our program, in our TV, in university as a professor, and you speak to people and so on, we have to provide more awareness for the importance.
As you said, sir, this is our job.
Absolutely.
And we hope that we are going to continue with our job and to reach the maximum. Simply, we do not have ceiling for our ambitions. Tomorrow is a better day, and we are really heading to the new republic. We were very much delighted to have you with us, sir. I enjoyed my time as usual, and we are going to leave you with a promise to see you again in more episodes of our program.
Thank you. And when you have a will, you have a drive. And we'll do it, we'll be able to do it,
Inshallah.
as our Egyptian army did it in 1973 against all odds. God bless Egypt and salute Egypt.
Thank you, sir. We were very much delighted and honored to have with us live here in the studio Dr. Saeed Kholy, former Dean of the Faculty of Commerce at Ain Shams University, and of course he is our economic expert. Now we're going to go to my dear colleague and friend Manal Ibiari, as we are going to know what were the most important economic events which took place in the past 7 days. By this we come to the end of our episode. Stay tuned on Nile TV International always for more. With all my love, this was Nirmina Abdurrahman.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met Thursday with Lieutenant General Mohammad Zaki, Minister of Defense and Military Production, and a group of senior commanders of the armed forces to follow up on the developments of the executive position of the National Project for Agricultural Production and Land Reclamation in the Toshka region in the south of the valley. The President was briefed on the efforts to develop the infrastructure, including roads and access, and the provision of machinery and equipment, including modern irrigation water stations and agricultural mechanization. He directed the completion of all elements and details of efforts to increase land reclamation areas in the Toshka area and to rely on agricultural means that are commensurate with the nature of the lands and climate in the region. Egypt ranked first in the Arab world and third in the world in exporting oranges for the year 2021, after the value of its exports amounted to $714 million, with a growth rate of 10.1% compared to 2020. According to the Canadian research website WTEX, Egypt acquired a share of 13.3% of the world's total orange exports by the end of last year, while its share of the Arab countries' total exports of this fruit was approximately 89.3%. On the other hand, the Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics announced that Egypt's exports of potatoes rose during the past 4 months of this year by 61.9% to reach $261.667 million compared to $161.583 million in the corresponding period of last year. Egypt is preparing to take actual steps in the development of the historic Tahrir complex in the downtown area, with the view that it will come out to the world in its final form as a hotel at the highest level in 2024. According to Bloomberg, the alliance consisting of developing the Tahrir complex and turning it into a hotel is set to end by the end of 2024, when the complex will be transformed into a new 5-star hotel with a capacity of 450 rooms and will be called Cairo House. The hotel also includes more than 85,000 square meters, from meeting and event spaces, many entertainment venues, and restaurants. The number of tourist arrivals to Egypt jumped by 85.4% in the first half of this year, reaching 4.9 million tourists compared to 2.6 million a year ago, but it is still lower compared to 6.1 million tourists in the first half of 2019. The Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics said in a statement that the number of tourist nights spent by tourists in the first half of 2022 amounted to 52.6 million tourist nights, compared to 32.2 million nights in the same period last year, an increase of 63.6%. Tourism is one of the most important sources of foreign exchange for Egypt, along with the Suez Canal and remittances from workers abroad, which was affected by the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, as Russia and Ukraine were a major source of tourist influx. Engineer Kamil El-Wazir, Minister of Transport, visited the Tokyo Metro Training Center and was received by the president of the company. It manages, operates, and maintains 9 metro lines in the Japanese capital Tokyo, with a total length of 195 kilometers, which currently transports 5.2 million passengers daily. The head of the Tokyo Metro Company confirmed that the company had submitted a proposal for the maintenance of the second line of the metro. The two sides also discussed the management, operation, and maintenance of the fourth subway line by the Tokyo Metro Company. The president of Tokyo Metro expressed great interest in the management, operation, and maintenance of the fourth line in partnership with the Japanese Mitsubishi. Engineer Tariq Al-Mulla, Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, confirmed that 5 new gas discoveries have been made in the Mediterranean and the Nile Delta, with total reserves of about 317 billion cubic feet of gas, in addition to confirming reserves of 471 billion cubic feet after drilling the Bashroush 3 well in the Mediterranean. He added that the plans to rationalize consumption currently implemented by the state enable the petroleum sector to continue the activity of exporting liquefied natural gas during the summer months, which represent the peak demand for gas in Egypt, which achieved returns of hard currency for the benefit of the Egyptian economy, where the average production of natural gas is about 6.7 billion cubic feet per day, and the average domestic consumption of natural gas is about 6.1 billion cubic feet per day. Engineer Mahmoud Ismat, Minister of Public Business Sector, reviewed during his meeting with the holding company for metallurgical industries a model of a natural gas-powered mass transit bus according to the latest European standards, which was produced on the commercial vehicle production line of the Nasr Automotive Company, with which the engineering automotive company recently merged. The minister affirmed the ministry's interest in expanding the production of environmentally friendly vehicles within the framework of the state's keenness to localize the automobile industry and keep pace with the global development in this industry by abandoning traditional fossil fuels. The vehicle is the first new product for Al Nasr Automotive Company as part of the state's trend towards switching to the use of clean energy, as it enjoys a high level of quality and luxury and was produced in accordance with the European emissions standards Euro 6.